Marathon does not have prox chat. Honestly, really weird, especially coming from Bungie wanting to build a social extraction shooter and you don't have prox chat in your game. I just think it's a little goofy, but should prox chat be added, and can it even be added to begin with? There's a lot of questions around that regarding EU laws, restrictions on communication, and a whole bunch of things, or just Bungie's general reasoning as to why they don't have prox chat in the game. Bungie has came out to said that it's really hard to regulate and control a community, especially since an extraction shooter brings a lot of toxicity because it's so competitive, and it's really hard to control that because you are subjecting a lot of people to just pure toxicity, and I feel like that's just a really bad reason and kind of an excuse almost. Yes, a lot of toxicity happens, and a lot of people will say, oh well, you can't mute people because that would be really weird and complex, especially if you're in in-game fights. How are you supposed to mute someone? And then are you just going to mute nearby players? Are you going to see a leaderboard of who's in the lobby that can give off information? So it's really hard to have a muting system with prox chat, but in my opinion, I feel like the best thing to do with prox chat is to just have an off and on feature right in the lobby. Make players choose if they want to have it on and off. But another thing with the toxicity in mind is that Bungie is usually very good with toxicity. I have thousands of hours in Destiny, and I scroll Destiny Twitter almost daily. I see DMG and everything, and Destiny toxicity is not acceptable in any way. Toxicity in Destiny is very interesting and kind of funny almost. If you're toxic to anyone through whispers or cheating, even though cheating is a different topic, but let's just say you're toxic through game chat or cheating, or toxic during a raid, you kick somebody out before the raid ends, DMG will see somebody tweet that and deadass get you banned in like 5 minutes. And with DMG taking a bigger role also handling Marathon on top of Destiny, I think it would be pretty easy for Marathon to get the same treatment as if you see someone that's toxic or cheating or anything in the game, tweet to DMG and I guarantee he'll deal with it really quickly. Or tweet to any of the devs. You know, Destiny has no tolerance for any toxicity, so I feel like it would be important to keep that standard across the game. Would you have AI regulations? I don't know. Maybe you would look for derogatory terms. I don't think you can really get mad at people for saying swear words. You know, you can't be mad at somebody and ban them because you said that they're gonna fuck their mom. But that is one of the problems that Bungie has said as to why they don't add it. But think about the benefits of prox chat. I feel like in this type of ecosystem, especially if you want to have a social extraction shooter, you should be able to have prox chat just to be able to communicate to other teams, because without prox chat, you're going to take every fight as aggression. With prox chat, you can take fights in a whole different area, have lots of funny moments, have lots of TikTok clips, yes, and also new players can plead with veterans not to kill them and extract with them and maybe get good guns, say like, hey, I'm a new player, and then the veteran will give them a good gun or take them through a boss fight and extract with them. That's a really good opportunity for new players, and I think you should take any chances on any player to be able to have that experience. Having that experience will draw more people in than people having bad experiences and draw them out. Also, another important aspect about Marathon is the UASC Marathon map that is supposedly coming very quickly after launch, the 4th map that's going to be added to the game. This map is apparently very puzzle driven, kind of dungeon inspired, Destiny-esque. Lots of puzzles, hard to navigate. I think only 20% of people even make it out in their current playtest. That is a very, very hard map and very puzzle driven, and you're going to have a lot of people that just want to go into that map, explore, figure out the puzzles, maybe as a community are trying to figure out these puzzles, maybe get to the center of the map, get through all these rooms, figure out the boss, figure out all these code combinations, you know, depending on how puzzle heavy it is. But with all this PvP, that's going to be pretty difficult to do. So think about prox chat in this environment, and also think about Sea of Thieves. You know, when you have these big puzzles or big events that you're trying to do and there's other teams that are also trying to compete for it, you can truce, and maybe as a community, you know, there's like an ARG going on. Think back to the ARG that started this whole thing. Maybe we need to solve this puzzle, so you can have prox chat and just be like, hey guys, relax, you know, let's solve this together. Maybe we can split the rewards or blah blah blah, like let's just try to solve this, or leave us alone. You know, you don't want teaming, which teaming is a whole different conversation. I think it would be really important for that Marathon map to have prox chat, so if you don't have to take fights and want to focus on all of these puzzles that the map offers, I think that's a huge deal. Now obviously that would make the map more accessible to people trying to complete the puzzles, and that's probably not their goal with this map. They really probably want this map to be a meat grinder and really hard to get out of, but it could also open to a lot of betrayals. You see at Thieves, you do a Fort of the Damned, you're trucing with someone, and then all of a sudden they stab you in the back. Like, those clips and media and just that environment is so much fun. And Sea of Thieves has prox chat, and it's a fun environment. Yes, it has toxicity, but there's tons of ways to deal with that. And Sea of Thieves also is pretty much a bare bones extraction shooter in a way, if you actually think about it. Now, what about another reason why they wouldn't want to have prox chat? And I think the best reason that I've seen as to why we shouldn't have prox chat is teaming. Teaming could become a very big issue because a 6v3 is insanely unfair. I don't think anyone would want to go through that. And then again, in an extraction shooter environment, environment, if you're unfortunate to come across 6 players that are teaming together, you're gonna lose all your stuff. That's really not fair. Now, what would you do against this? There's a lot of things that you can do, but where is the line of teaming? Is trucing with other teams and choosing not to fight them teaming? Is doing a PvE activity together teaming? Like, there's so many lines that can be drawn at teaming. I think it would just be weird and kind of complicated, because let's say, for example, in competitive Fortnite, not taking fights is considered cheating, you know? Well, as long as they're communicating with it, it's considered cheating. And that can be the same thing in this type of environment, depending on how Bungie sees it. But yes, it could be unfair, and I do think that is a genuine concern. Another concern that I see a lot, which I don't really think is that valid, is EU regulation and laws. A lot of countries around the world are kind of restricting speech in a way, at least compared to America. At least that's from what I'm gathering. You know, they want certain regulations on how to report speech, harassment, you know, something that can be said here but not be acceptable somewhere else. And to me, that answer just feels flat. I feel like that doesn't apply, because you have so many games that do have prox chat. For number one, Warzone, one of the biggest games in the world right now, and Warzone is perfectly fine going around with these laws. And Sea of Thieves also has prox chat, and that is a huge Xbox game. So I feel like this whole idea of laws that are regulating it, and this is why they can't do it because of certain laws, I just feel like that's cheap and not really a real answer. There is a concern that maybe Sony is very concerned on this, and they don't want to have to deal in that regulation, because something like Tarkov that does have prox chat, I think, just doesn't give a shit, but Sony does, and they really don't want to get into any trouble. But what I say to that is, look at Xbox with Sea of Thieves. They're perfectly fine having it out, and of course these are two completely different games, but they are still made by two ginormous publishers that sell their products globally around the world. And that's pretty much everything that I've heard from this conversation in terms of reasons for it, reasons against it. Also, on top of prox chat, I think death chat would be a great idea. If you don't know what death chat is, think to Warzone. If you don't know, if you haven't played Warzone, death chat is just pretty much a small window period that you can get to talk to somebody like through game chat when you die. So if I die from somebody in Warzone, I have like a 3-5 second period that I can say something to them, to the person that killed me. And it can lead to a lot of toxicity, don't get me wrong. You know, a lot of it is just calling them a bitch. You're camping, oh, you're a little pussy. But a lot of it can be funny, you know? Now, will they add that? No, they're probably not going to add that, especially since they're not all the way on board with prox chat. I would love to see it down the line, though. I think it would be really funny. And I know the whole concern is, yes, you know, you want it for media, but I think this is more than just media clips and TikTok farming. This is about the environment of your game, building a community and trust between players. People that aren't even interested in this game are saying that no prox chat on launch is a horrible idea. People that won't even touch this game with a 10-foot pole are saying that that is a horrible idea. I think universally there are some people that disagree, but I think it's just, you're outweighed, man, by a lot. Honestly, this whole conversation is really just one-sided at this point. Yes, there's people that say that it shouldn't be in the game. There's valid concerns, but you have to bite the bullet sometimes. You know, there's some bad things that come along with it, but overall, prox chat is just overwhelmingly positive and just adds great things for the game. So should they add it? Yes, I do think. Will it bring toxicity? Yes, but Bungie's community, especially with the community managers and the people in it and the streamers, they're not going to take that toxicity at all. And I feel like over time, as the game gets fleshed out and kind of has a narrow community with people that are dedicated to playing that, and that type of behavior is not welcome at all. Because I dare someone try to be toxic on Twitter and post that shit, bro, you're getting banned. Do I think the EU has any regulations involved with this? No. Do I think Sony is kind of pushing against it? No, not really. Do I think teaming is a valid concern? Yeah, I do think teaming is a valid concern. How would you handle it? That's up to the developers. I'm not a developer. I really hope this does end up coming to the game. I would be very, very shocked if by launch that we don't know that prox chat is coming to the game. If this game does launch without prox chat, I'm going to be very disappointed. It's going to be pretty sad. I feel like this is a great opportunity, especially since streamers have been saying, and people that have playtest the game have been saying constantly over and over again that they're taking so much feedback. Every build we play gets better and better. Okay, well, let's see how they're listening to that feedback. Add something like prox chat. Listen to our feedback. I think the overwhelming majority of people do want this in the game. So yeah, what do you guys think about this? Let me know, and I'll see you in the next one.